Okay, that's it. I'm pissed. Officially. I'm calling out all you lazy ass designers out there, seriously. You want to automate everything, turn our profession into, something a monkey could do? Well, I'm not having it. So, if you're interested in hearing what exactly I'm talking about, you're going to want to stay right here. So, I've had the pleasure to work with a lot of amazing designers, amazing creatives out there that are constantly looking to push the bar. They're passionate about what they do. They love it. They literally need to create or they're going to die. And that's how I feel. But time and time again, I come across these designers that claim to be doing this for brand consistency, essentially creating guidelines that are so tight and restrictive that there's no room for any creativity whatsoever. So what is brand consistency? Now, is that just ensuring that you're using the correct brand colors, you're using the correct logos, you have a design language, a guide for your imagery? Sure, all that's true, but does it mean that you can't stray from what it is you've created before in the past? Like, so-and-so came here, he designed this template that we use for LinkedIn social media posts, and so, that's what we use. Okay, discussion over. No, I would say that is not brand consistency. That is brand boring as hell. That's what that is. You're gonna get lost in this sea of advertising out there. There is so much that we're being hit with, and now you've got AI that's putting the power in the hands of so many, and the appetite for content is just going through the roof, that it's just adding to the problem. It's just adding to the fact that there is so much out there and there's no room for stagnation. And I think that's what happens with these brands. And I would argue that if your brand isn't evolving, that it's dead. You're either constantly inventing and pushing your brand and pushing the edges and getting to know and understand your audience, fine-tuning what that is, creating personas or avatars, and realizing that the world is changing super fast. You can't sit still. So, if you came into this business, you're a creative, and you're just looking to build a system where everything designs itself, and that is your legacy, and you don't ever have to think again, then why? Why are you doing this? You're ruining it, essentially. Now, this isn't just me. Let's hear from a couple of brand influencers. They're younger, hip. You've got Oren John here talking, and he's on this podcast with Camille Moore. So let's hear what they got to say.
it used to be things were like trending for like a year or two, and now I feel like we're in like the trend singularity where like innovation happens faster and faster until it's unrecognizable. I feel like everything's happening at once now. Like you can say Louis Vuitton went Western's going to be in, then it's going to be out. No, I think it's something, once something arrives, it's in forever. And I think the only thing that's really out is like super stark and simple Casper millennial style branding, you know, or that kind of, that era of like very simple like minimalism. What I see happening here is these living brands almost, where like packaging is iterating consistently, like logos are iterating consistently, where the brand guides and what people are putting together is like constantly evolving, where like every release is a special edition, for lack of a better term, because like there's so much exploration from the consumer side. There's so much, like whether even you're buying the same thing you did before, they just feel like it's something new, that I feel like it's kind of really opens up an interesting creative palette for new and existing brands to just kind of constantly be in shift. And obviously that's a lot of design work, it's a lot of creative work, but that's kind of the culture we're in now, where it's like you need to make content every day. You need to have iterations happening all the time. And I think the brands that kind of embrace that and really work through it and have consistency in their product but have variation in their presentation, brand, and marketing are kind of on the right wave.
So consistency with product. You know, I would also say maybe you're a company that delivers services, and so you don't have a product per se, but you're delivering on your brand promise again and again to provide value, to be the brand that your customers, your prospects think you are. And so you can be boring and stuffy, and maybe it worked with the previous generation, but if you want to go the way of so many other brands that just didn't evolve, you know, Blockbuster, Sears, you know, I would say even FedEx, you know, they seem to be struggling, but this isn't about picking on individual brands per se. This is more about like you need to evolve. So in this clip that I just shared, they were showing imagery from McDonald's and Burger King and Coca-Cola. Of course, those are B2C consumer brands, and you know, there's a lot of competition there, and so you might argue, well, if I'm a big B2B brand that's more technical, you know, I can get away with putting out boring stuff and the same thing. And I would argue that you can't. That's not true. Not if you're looking to really scale and be relevant. You know, the example I used earlier is a company that, you know, been around for 100 plus years, and they are breaking into kind of new territory with some cutting edge stuff. I don't want to give too much away here. And yet they're still trying to leverage these templates for brand consistency that is basically like, well, okay, just know you're going to lose. Now, I can see that that's important if, you know, you have maybe a non-creative that needs a tool that they can use for something that's repetitive, and you know, you're not really expecting much out of it. But if you're dealing with like social and ads and cutting through the noise and trying to really reach people, you're not going to do that with some stupid template that looks the same every time you put something out and has no room for creativity, even to the point where you require your people, those who are leveraging the brand, to pull from a library of images that are very stock looking images, and there are very few there. They're poorly crafted, and they're just old. I'm sorry, you know, I have specific client I'm thinking of. They're a huge global brand, and I've been working with them recently, with a department within this larger company, and they've been frustrated with the internal design team, and they're looking for some fresh design. Now obviously you need to be true to the design. You want people to know, or to the brand rather, you want people to know that, hey, this is coming from X company, but there should be some ability to tailor what you're doing to the application. Working with some demand gen people that they want to see results. They want to measure things. Does this copy work better than that copy? Can we try different images, different layouts, and start to find that sweet spot? And then you're not done at that point. You just have more of a direction, and you can continue to build off of that. So anyways, I've been doing that. We've been working within some brand guides that maybe weren't the company-wide guides. They were for a specific campaign, and I was being true to that. But recently got some feedback from their internal design team of where what I had created didn't align, and that's all well and good, and their notes made sense. I wasn't familiar with those exact rules, so great, check, we can do that. But then they would try to force a specific template on me for everything, to where there's no room for design whatsoever. You're basically just plugging in a title, and it just flows how it's going to flow, and put in the date and pull an image from their really poor stock library, and then pray that somehow cuts through the noise that is the world that we live in, the world of advertising being bombarded. And so I have a couple problems with brands like this. Now, there are plenty of people to blame for something like this, and this comes down, I think, to these penny pinching design leaders or whatever that think, hey, we can be more efficient if we build these templates and not allow for any room, and essentially we can work for a couple hours a week and sit and visit for the rest of the time. I need to dig more into this. I know some of you are thinking I'm crazy. That's okay, because I am a little crazy. I've been one who has maybe been a little slow to adopt the idea of using a template or leveraging that kind of thing. Using a tool like AI, if I worry that I'm cheating. But what I realize, and I've said this on this program before, is that if we're going to use a template, we're going to use ChatGPT or Midjourney or whatever, that rather than just doing our work for us, and then that means we can go home early, or we can only work, we only have to work an hour or two a day or whatever, because that's not sustainable. You're going to get surpassed. Your stuff is not going to hold up. You're going to work yourself out of a job or create a tool and I'm all about staying employed. I mean, obviously I want to do what's best for my employer, the client, whoever. And on the outset, you might think that, hey, we're cutting costs, so we're doing what's best for the business as a whole. And let me tell you something. That reminds me of another thing that's pissed me off this week. Chipotle. Now, I've said it time and time again. I love me some Chipotle. Like, ever since, 2010, 2012, I've told myself that, and others who will listen, that if I had to pick one food to eat exclusively for the rest of my life, it would be Chipotle. Not because I think it's the most flavorful, amazing food in the world, but it's clean, it's healthy, it's satisfying, and it ticks a lot of the boxes. If you look at that food pyramid, which I know isn't necessarily accurate anymore, it's got that well covered. And every time you go, you can switch it up a little bit. So the dream, the founding principles behind Chipotle are strong and true with me. But what's been happening, and I've experienced it, and then I see all over the socials that others have experienced it as well, is the being nickel and dimed at Chipotle, while at the same time getting screwed on portion size and quality of food, I would argue. And you hear from past employees and even the past Chipotle CEO. I saw a clip earlier today that was like, let the people have their food. As soon as you start getting super nitpicky with portion size, then you're actually gonna have problems. And I would equate this to the whole using one template for eternity when it comes to social media for a brand or whatever. Is it's like, no, if it doesn't fit within this 4-ounce scoop, then you can't do it. Then it's like, okay, well, people aren't going to want to eat there anymore. People aren't going to find value anymore. So, whereas on the flip side, if people feel like they're being treated well, one person is fine with that super skimpy quarter scoop of rice and beans because they're trying to cut back or whatever, then great, they'll be fine. But if someone says, hey, you know what, can I get another scoop of that? And you're like, no, you got to follow the rules. This is what we do. Then that person is going to feel like, all right, this place is no longer for me. I'm going somewhere else. Whereas on the flip side, if they've been treated well and they're like, oh, yes, sir, sorry about that. We'll get you that extra scoop, or hey, you want, 1 finger of sauce to put, dressing to put on your burrito. We're not going to charge you $2. We'll just give it to you because it's such a small amount. I'm getting hungry now, but I'm worried if I order Chipotle, they're going to skim. But I know you're like, hey, you're a guy that likes to eat, and if people stuck to portion sizes, then we wouldn't have this obesity problem in America, right? Okay, there's some truth to that. But we're not talking about obesity or not. We're talking about your brand and whether it's gonna cut through the noise in in the example of Chipotle, there's other companies out there, Moe's, Costa Vida, Cafe Rio, that are the similar, go down the line, get a scoop of this, meat. And Chipotle has decided from the top down that we're gonna save money. We're gonna make the freaking shareholders that much more wealthy by squeezing the customer. Similar to Starbucks has got a similar thing going on. Yeah, not gonna work. Now, on paper, you can say, hey, we're gonna cut down on these things and we're gonna automate it and we're gonna train our employees and it's gonna be consistent, we can all this. But with that equation, you're forgetting about the fact that the consumer is a variable, that they are emotional. They were given a certain promise of what your brand was at one point, and I'm talking 2012 to 2018 Chipotle. This is what it's like. You go in there, you get these scoops, you want an extra scoop. Okay, we're not gonna bug you about it. The chicken, the meat portions, yeah, you want double meat, you're gonna pay a little extra. That's fine. You want guacamole? From the beginning, we knew that was extra. That's fine. But we could get a free tortilla, which you can't anymore. We could get, another extra scoop of rice or beans without problems. But here I go, down the tangents again. I gotta focus. So, but what's happening is the promise has been broken. And I still find value in Chipotle. I think my experience with the app, it's beautifully designed. Pick what I want. I go, drive through the drive-through, pick it up. That's great. And my local Chipotle has been pretty decent. Yeah, the prices continue to go up, but they've been pretty decent. But I'm not someone who's working a 9-to-5 and having to live paycheck to paycheck, and they count on this being a reliable, kind of consistent dining experience. And why is that relevant? I don't know. But people aren't as loyal as me. I'm not as loyal as others. The fact that I'm even bringing up this about Chipotle is concerning to me. Someone who said that this is the one food that if I had to choose, I would limit myself to that indefinitely. And here I am kind of throwing shade. I'm sorry. But it needs to be said. And I hope that it will be fixed. And to close the loop on Chipotle, the former CEO, like I alluded to earlier, said, let the people have their food. Because in the long run, it's not about portion control as much as it is about waste. And he talked about how, if you make a dinner for two, there's usually going to be a good amount of waste because it's just, you got to buy things a certain amount of bulk. The cost is higher. You make it ends up being enough for four. Put it in the fridge, doesn't get eaten, gets thrown away. You make a meal for 100 people, and you've gotten that value on buying in bulk, and there's like zero waste because, law of averages, and he didn't get into this, but since I'm a math genius, I decided to throw it out there. You got a guy like me, also known as the finisher, you put a certain amount of food in front of me, it's gonna get eaten, and I know that's a problem. You got other people that are like, hey, I just need this much. There may be a finisher who's gonna go behind and get that, but regardless, people are happy. The price per individual is gonna be cheaper, and back to that first point, people are happy, and so people are gonna come back, and they're gonna tell their friends, and they're gonna have good experience, and their friends are gonna have good experience, and it's gonna continue to grow, and that brand is gonna become more beloved as a result, like it was once upon a time, and now it's being drug through the mud. I hate it, but it's valid. And so I just recently discovered that stupid salad dressing. You put it on your burrito, like on the side, like with each bite, and it just takes it to a whole nother level. But the only way you can get it through the app is to order either a salad or a quesadilla. And so sometimes I'll just order a quesadilla and give it to my kid and use that sauce for my own self. But if I have to start going in there and paying like $2 extra for it, or it's gonna make me mad, and I'm gonna have to start making Chipotle at home, which is happening. People are figuring that out. So don't let your brand die. Don't let your brand become stagnant because you're not giving people what they want, or you're not delivering on those brand promises that you made. And like it or not, Chipotle, in this example, is evolving from a fast casual, healthy, valuable alternative to where, you were paying $6 or $7 for a burrito back, 5 years ago, and now you're paying like 10, and if you add any add-ons, it's going to be like 15, and then you get a chips or a drink and you're $25 for one person, whereas you used to be able to get out of there for half that, no problem. And if it were just that, if it were just that they were nickel and diming us and using inflation to screw us, that would be one thing. But it's the double or triple threat. Not only are they raising their prices, they're being more nitpicky about serving size, and the quality of the food is going down. And yeah, that, you might have a good location where you can rely on it. There's some where you get the crunchy rice, or the beans are just juice basically, or your veggies, which I like the onions but not the peppers so much, are wilted, or you get your pico and then freaking tomatoes in there. Tastes more like, I don't know, something horrible. Like pumpkin? Raw pumpkin rind? Yeah, raw pumpkin rind, as opposed to a juicy burst of Mexican flavor like they should be. And yet they're passing it off as the same thing. I know Chipotle had their problems with health safety. The stuff wasn't kept at the right temperatures, and people got sick, food poisoning or whatever. That's you don't want that. But ain't nothing to do with portion sizes. So, anyways, we could dissect this till the cows come home. And I know you came to this program to talk about creative, to learn from some dude that thinks he knows what he's talking about. Likes to talk to himself is essentially what it comes down to. And likes food. You know, that's me. That's the promise that I'm trying to deliver on. And when it comes right down to it, no brand is perfect. No one is perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But better to fail quickly and iterate than to lock yourself into some stupid restrictive brand guide and template and cause a lot of damage, for a long period of time. Like, oh yeah, so-and-so leader implemented all of these processes 5 years ago, and it was a slow trickle at first, but then our engagement on our ads and stuff went into the toilet, and only now, because the new chief creative officer came in, shook things up, did we understand our mistakes. Whereas instead, if we just realize that our brand needs to be living and iterating and constantly evolving, and that we don't want to staff our creative team with a bunch of lazy piece of crap designers that don't even want to do this. They don't even want to do it. They want to talk about their girlfriends and their divorces and their weekend that's coming up, or their plans, Like, I hated being the bad guy. I had to get in there and just be like, let's get to work. Because you got to manage perceptions, optics, and so I truly believe that there are two different types of creatives out there, or I won't even put them in the category of creatives. There's the truly passionate, fascinated creative or designer that does this because they love it, and they get inspired by seeing what others are doing, and they think they have to think hard. It's not easy, I can't obviously rip off what this other person did, and it wouldn't even necessarily work for this brand that I happen to be a designer for. But what can I do to shake up my industry or my company so that we can see results, and we can cut through the noise, and we can get that brand awareness. We can drive people to our company's event. We can convert leads into dollar bills. That's not to say that we've got the best metrics as creatives. That's someone else's job. But we work in tandem. We work symbiotically or serendipitously, whatever, with our demand gen counterparts who say, hey, this ad that we just ran, the conversion rate was X, we think it can be higher, or it has been, or maybe this is just what we always get. Let's work together to see how can we break through. What can we do to shake things up? Do we try a different looking call to action button? Do we try a slightly different layout? Do we change up the word count? Obviously messaging can change and the design can stay the same. There are just infinite amount of variables, but as you try them and you get success, and then you go and apply that to the next thing you do, then you start to see like, hey, these are the types of things that right now are working or tend to be working. Let's keep moving in that direction. That doesn't mean, okay, let's plant a stake in the ground and say this is it. Let's create those templates that are just gonna, work and get us this kind of engagement and conversion on a consistent basis, because that's not gonna work. And again, I'm not saying I'm against templates. I'm just saying that they need to be leveraged correctly. So if you're given a template to a non-designer and it's an area of the business where you just can't put a lot of focus right now, and you need consistency, but you're kind of taking a break on really innovating in that area, and you've given it to a non-creative, then great. They can go and, plug in the text, find an image from your library, and ship it. But if it is something that stakeholders are being measured on, and they're frustrated because their internal design team won't work with them as a team to iterate on this crap and actually see what's working, and they're just like, no, this is the brand we've learned in college that we need to be consistent with our brand, and this was the template we created 5 years ago, so use it. Then you're dead. Your brand's dying. So for the love of all that's holy, yeah, create templates, but use it as a jumping off point. If someone needs those bumper rails so they don't throw a gutter ball, great, let them use it. But if they don't need it, and they're gonna roll strikes, you go ahead and let them take those bumpers off. You just take them off. I know. I know that for every person that agrees with me, there's 10 who probably don't. And I'm curious, this hot take of mine, we'll call it as it is. How do you feel? Should brands be living? Am I wrong about brand consistency? Does it really mean that you have to stick with the template and these exact colors, and that if you're doing that, then you're being consistent, and therefore you have one of your pillars of brand building in place and unshakable, or is there room to be like, yeah, that's our logo, we're gonna use our logo, and we're gonna use it correctly, we're not gonna change colors, use random colors that we're not supposed to. We have a certain type of icon design, we're going to leverage that. We have a corporate font, we're going to use that. But we're not going to tie your hands with regard to exact layout or exact usage of every element. We're giving you the ability to do your job, not just as a designer that's, helping to build the brand and the awareness of the brand, but as a team with your demand gen partners who are saying, these things that were working a year ago, 6 months ago, in that market, in that environment, with the landscape of what was out there, they worked fine. But we're seeing a drop off, so we can't just keep shipping that same thing, else I'm going to get blamed for it, and I'm going to get kicked out of here. And it's kind of a catch-22, because if someone goes and breaks the rules and keeps getting written up or something for creating things that aren't on brand, depending on the organization, they're not even tracking things well enough to be able to say, yeah, but it converted in better experience for our customer, which converted into more revenue and profit, and that's really what's important, as opposed to just allowing these lazy designers to sit on their cushy, insulated throne and not have to lift a finger or think anymore, because they're just executing. They're just, instead of being a designer, they're basically design cops. They just go around and say, according to section 4B of the corporate brand guide, you can't do that, and you have to use a photo from this library. Doesn't matter that there's no photo that exists that actually represents what is being messaged. Doesn't matter. You pick a photo, doesn't matter. As long as it comes from our repository. So, sorry if this has felt like a bit of a rant, because it has. Sometimes, even the gentle giant, the nicest of us all, and I'm not saying that's me, but I have been accused for being too nice. Sometimes I get pissed too, and I say enough is enough, and I'm calling out the other designers out there that aren't really interested in designing, that they would rather just police these statutes that have been put in place once upon a time, or they love having their systems because then that means they don't have to think anymore. They just get to, automate everything. And if it were just about automating things so that they can start from a good place and have more time to innovate and push things further, then I'd be all for it. But instead, what I see happening, experienced myself, is it's like, let's automate it so that we can pat ourselves on the back and say that, look at this great tool, this system that we built, and now we can essentially work 4 out of 40 hours and still get paid the same. And I believe that they're cheating their employer or their client by doing that. So hit me up. Drop some comments. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why, in your mind, brand consistency means sticking with this boring stuff consistently, regardless of whether it's right or not. Because I'm not seeing it. I've really tried. So I say it every time, but I want you to go and do it. And that's to just keep on creating. Because if you aren't truly creating, you're dying. So create or die.